did you go to school?
And here's your...
What do you think of what's going on right now, mate?
These evil little invisible parasites.
Satan-worshipping Freemason moron.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We're not run by factions.
Get the fuck out of camera!
There are much more powerful international forces in play.
Is this pink guy? Is this what pink guy is? I don't fucking know what's happening.
Please go outside and look at the moon quickly.
It's been crazy, guys, but guess what? It's how it is, mate.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
But I ain't spending any time on it.
Well, g'day and welcome, patrons, to our premium episode. It says 53, but I think that's a lie. I think it's well into the billions now.
We've done heaps
of our premium episodes. We do them a lot. We enjoy doing them for you guys because you obviously keep our conditional release program going. Mm-hmm. And joining me, of course, is Joel. How are you, mate? Have you opened up the first tin of the day yet? Was that I just heard?
I have. Look, it is the first tin of the day, actually. Sometimes I get a bit of a buzz on before when I'm writing, but I'm trying to drink less at the moment. This admittedly isn't a CBCO beer.
Oh, dear. I think that's in breach of our sponsor's agreement.
I can say that on the premium. I got this nice, very gay, rainbow-covered Bridal Vice.
Lawyer's letter is in the mail.
I tell you what, it's called the Midsummer Ale, like, the Midsummer thing they have in Victoria. And Cookers didn't really go
feral. They don't have a Midsummer thing in Victoria, Joel. I lived in Victoria. There was no Midsummer thing.
Midsummer Festival. The LGBTQIA thing. Okay, cool. It doesn't exist. That's good. Well, this can doesn't exist, but the hallucination I'm having has a lot of rainbows on it, lots of trans stuff, and I'm very surprised that Cookers didn't, get really upset about it, but they didn't, so fuck them.
Well,
nice
there's plenty of time.
I like my beers
plenty of time.
Gay as possible. But not Bud Light, which is trash.
Kicking off the show, a couple of people have fallen off the branch, Joel.
Yes, they have.
And there are not a lot of tears.
No. Well, actually, there surprisingly are, and I didn't get time to pull these. I might pull them as we record the episode because that's what the premium's like. I'm just going to go through and check this out. But we have seen a couple of fallen soldiers over the past couple of weeks in the form of Rolf Harris and Rashid Buttar. Now, most people who are speaking about it are speaking fondly, and I'm telling you what, in the Cooker circles, or at least like right-wing conservatives, there's lots of nostalgia for Rolf Harris. Apparently, as long as you aren't a left-wing activist or politician or figure in any kind of way, you can fiddle kids.
But if you're a predator,
that's fine.
No worries at all. It must be said that he had a pension for teenage girls, Joel.
Yes, he
kids.
Yes, he did. Well, I mean, look, when it comes down to it, the ephebophile technicality, either way, young people that he had no business interfering with. Either way,
absolutely not. But
Cookers
that was
are on board.
His thing, teenage girls.
Nazis love teenage girls, so I can see why they're all pretty okay with it. To be honest, they're fucking into it. So Rashid Buttar is probably lesser known, but he is also quite a terrible person for very different reasons. That being said, child abuse, I could argue. But let's see both of them off, and let's kick off with Rashid. You want to start?
Rashid Buttar died on May 18th. Now, he not only spread medical misinformation, but also administered bullshit to desperate patients for large sums of money.
Classic.
Expensive placebos.
Yep.
He's a doctor in that kind of American way, how you've got to call your vet and your dentist a doctor. Or saying like your osteopath, hello, doctor.
Well, that's the case here.
Buttar was perhaps infamously or notoriously a member of the Disinformation Dozen, the top 12 spreaders of medical misinformation after or during the pandemic. And as with most Cooker doctor types, he wore this as a badge of pride. Ooh, what a terrible bastard.
Oh, they fucking love this shit. So, Buttar practiced medicine in North Carolina post-pandemic, but lived in New Zealand for many times before the pandemic. Now, I don't know the breakup on that, and to be honest, I don't really care, because this guy left a fucking trail of victims wherever he went because he fucking sucks. I say practice medicine very loosely, of course, because he just did fucked up shit in his clinic for money.
Yeah, he needed more practice.
Yes, he
needed to practice a bit more.
He needed to go and get a different job. Well, I guess he kind of did, becoming like an anti-vax lunatic and became a cult hero status across the fucking world. But he was reprimanded twice by the board in North Carolina for unprofessional conduct, which I'm guessing is mostly related to him blathering about vaccines. But somehow it was okay to treat autistic children with a topical gel that he charged a bunch of money for. Just rub this on your belly and you'll suddenly be able to read social cues. mate. Well done. What a fucking cunt he is.
Yeah, he also treated cancer with intravenous hydrogen peroxide. So he was into the use of bleach to cure what ails you.
Yep.
He would treat autistic patients with chelation therapy to remove heavy metals from the system. Absolute junk, which is, of course, it's absolute junk as a treatment and going to do more harm than any, it's not just going to leave that person in the same spot.
Yeah.
They're actually going to go backwards.
Well, I mean, look, if you'd gone and seen this fucking asshole, you'd be dead. So there's that.
Well, it's you've been junked up on false hope for a start.
Well,
That's
absolutely,
ultimately
100%.
dashed.
Yeah,
and you've lost a lot of money.
He's the fucking worst. So, from a Vice article on this fucking terrible piece of work, it was reported that he did pointless tests on patients for, as we said, a shitload of money.
Yeah, just before we break away into that, Vice filed for bankruptcy this week, Joe.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, to be honest.
It really is a sad
Vice,
thing.
but,
It had the backing. I think it was valued at over $5 billion American dollars at one point.
Oof.
Now its assets have been sold for about $225 million. So things have gone backwards very, very seriously. It's filed Chapter 11 in the United States with debts of up to $1 billion.
Oof.
It had reached a deal with creditors including Fortress Investment Group, Soros Fund Management,
Ooh.
and Monroe Capital. But it had the backing in early days. I think it was James Murdoch who introduced Vice to the 21st Century Fox family.
Yeah.
And they got him behind it as well. Look, I am not, I actually find a lot of Vice content on television and in media to be pretty good.
Yeah, surprisingly.
And this is just a further reflection on just how hard it is in the media world these days.
Oh, it's very difficult.
And a lot of people losing jobs, and it's a very sad thing. But back to the late Dr. Buttar and the Vice article.
Yes. So here's the quote. You kick this one
I
off.
have the quote. Not only would Dr. Buttar order and have administered unproven and ineffectual therapies for patients A, B, and C in an attempt to drive up his billings, ooh, what a prick. He would also order numerous tests and lab work for these patients that had no rational medical relationship to the patient's cancer diagnosis. You have to understand, in American context, these patients are just getting fed these enormous pathology bills.
Paying retail, yeah, it's fucked.
So
Moreover?
this is, moreover, it's just in relation to patients' cancer diagnoses as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a trifling matter.
No,
Moreover, many tests and lab work that were ordered by Dr. Buttar were never adequately justified in the medical records of the patients, were never linked to the patient's diagnoses or clinical condition, and in some cases were never interpreted, so not properly analysed
Just
by
never fucking looked
Dr.
at.
Buttar.
Fucking pointless. Amazing. I imagine he just got points on the, commissions for doing them. I don't know. According to the complaint, or one complaint, one patient wrote Buttar a check for $6,700 shortly before dying. So
Can you
when
make that out to cash, please?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to get this $6,700 locked up in probate.
Yes, good Lord. Well, the widow tried to cancel the check, basically reasoning the treatment had been, in the words of the complaint, useless.
I think you're entitled to say that if you're dead.
Well, yeah, but Buttar disagreed by basically referring the patient's account to a collections agency to send it to collections. What a fucking asshole. So you can see what a cunt this guy is. So he marketed himself as a doctor who treats vaccine-damaged patients. I'm going to go and remove the vaccine from you and bullshit like that.
Yeah.
So there's no surprises there, but there's no surprises here either. He's hugely into MLM scams, including an affiliate marketing deal with Charlene and Ty Bollinger.
Oh, that lovely couple.
Yeah, we've discussed these guys before. They run the Truth About Cancer, which is an organization where they claim to know the secrets to curing cancer, and they take money from scared, desperate people who then refuse actual treatment and eat a bunch of fucking apricot kernels instead.
They do. And they've actually killed people.
They've killed people.
The Bollingers have actually killed people.
And got very rich doing it. I can't begin.
There was the American teenage girl who had been diagnosed with cancer, and I think it was leukemia type blood cancer, of course, and Bollinger, Ty Bollinger, convinced her to go to Mexico. It led to an enormous sort of legal scrap.
Yeah.
With the state saying that this was almost certainly going to kill her. In the end, she went with Bollinger. She received the treatment. But she came back. She knew, I guess the penny had dropped for her in that particular instance. And then after a protracted business, she recommenced her therapy again, chemotherapy and radiotherapy again, but it was too late. She died.
Yeah. Time is of the essence. What can you say?
Look, Buttar's death has been turned into a conspiracy, wouldn't you know?
Oh, really?
But he actually planted the seed of his own nefarious death. This plays into a wider narrative that people who speak out against the pandemic and the jab are being picked off by shadowy forces.
Ooh.
Probably ASIO. Robert David Steele, a conspiracy theorist who died from COVID, had a lot of absurd theories floated about his death.
He was fucked.
Idiots on Twitter are claiming that Buttar had snail and snake toxin in his blood.
The fuck is snail toxin?
Didn't know snails have toxin. Some of them do.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm not eating them.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Snail slime in your blood. It's
do
not
not boil up snails and inject them. That is medical advice from the Conditional Release program.
That is it. That's not inject
for.
snails directly into your left eyeball. It will hurt, and you might get toxins. Stu Peters is pushing the idea that there is a Pfizer hit list because he's an idiot and his audience are gullible, paranoid rubes.
They fucking believe it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. They've actually hired a hitman, and so Pfizer just go around just ordering the knocking of people.
Well, I mean, look, this is the thing. Despite dying suddenly, which is not my words, this is what they said on his fucking quack practice website.
Yeah, his
death was not unexpected because he had said basically that he'd been given a poison which was, quote, 200 times that what was in the vaccine shortly after an interview with CNN in late 2021.
What's he talking about there, Joel?
What's 200 times the vaccine poison?
What was in the vaccine? What are we talking about? The measles vaccine? Are we talking about polio?
Oh, we know which jab it is. Don't you play coy with me, Jack. We know exactly what happened here.
200 times the vaccine poison.
I mean, it's just fucking gibberish. I mean, he's just making shit up. But look, it really resonated with idiots. I mean, they fucking loved it. They were like, oh my God, he's been poisoned. I mean, it's like when fucking Pete Evans was like, if I die, it wasn't a suicide. And it's like, of course it wasn't. You're just lining it up just in case you slip over in your patio and all your fucking idiots can be like, oh, it was the deep state. Ah. So he called himself the most censored doctor on the planet. And to be honest, there's a bit of competition for that role. And he speculated that his travails were sent to him by God to help him spread his message. So there's the big G word again. After doing the Kenya episode, which actually is going to come out after this because I have to edit the fucking thing. The God thing. I'm not happy with God at the moment. Just a little bit angry.
Well, but he's misunderstood, really.
Well,
Joe.
That's literally the situation. Really.
I think he's overestimated, to be honest. When I have a vision of God, I have a vision of Albert Steptoe from Steptoe and Sons. As this is kind of rather gnarly old man, and he hasn't got control over very much at all, and everything that he does do, he doesn't do very well.
It sounds very concerning. Well, I think he should go and seek
therapy.
That's
my vision of God. I think when people think of God, that they think that God is going to be omnipotent. I think that's the mistake.
Well, I mean, if you create a world like this with the sort of general... I mean, if you created capitalism by creating a creature that would make such a greedy and awful system, well, you're a fucking idiot. Anyway, so... basically, despite the claim that Buttar died suddenly, he also had a stroke in February. So this isn't really that unprecedented here. He, of course, went on to blame this for being exposed to the mRNA COVID vaccine through vaccinated people shedding on him.
Oh, well, there you go. That will happen.
We figured it out. It's all from shedding. And, of course, cookers online are saying this is from shedding as well.
He died of shedding. That's why he had a stroke.
Yeah, it's the dumbest fucking thing. He was also admitted to intensive care earlier this year with heart issues, which was either myocarditis or pericarditis. We're not sure, but
Well, are we sure that it's one or the other and not something else?
well, I mean, look, heart disease didn't exist before the pandemic because
That's right. Yeah,
COVID vaccines created heart
And
disease.
the only forms of heart disease are myocarditis and pericarditis.
Well, it's the only thing that could possibly happen. And you know, Shane Warne died from the vaccine, and that's because he was also mainlining stimulants, trying to lose weight so he could look hot in
You
Thailand.
don't know that.
No, that's very official.
It's not a fact
the
at all.
stimulants that he was taking, the Chinese medicine to lose weight. Where is
that
was
this
mainstream media.
It
was
been
public
published in mainstream
record.
media.
110%. You should listen to our podcast. We talked about it. It's a great one. I tell you what, I'll send you the link.
We did never do that at all. We did
Absolutely.
never do
It was probably a Phaedra, but he was taking Chinese traditional medicines, herbal concoctions, to basically try and shed weight. And the thing is that this wouldn't necessarily be that bad, but apparently his lifestyle was basically like not eating for 3 days and then getting like pissed or eating a fucking like tray of lasagna or some shit, and just he was just very erratic and very strange. But yeah, he was taking.
He was also a smoker. He had hypertension.
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff.
Things.
But I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to be working out when taking stimulants when you're someone who probably doesn't have a good ticker in the first place. That's my argument here. And of course, you shouldn't get vaccinated.
The other thing to say is that if you, I mean, I do know that Shane Warne had COVID at least twice.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
And that when you get COVID, you'll have a heightened risk of heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, vaccination status would indicate that you are slightly less likely to have enduring cardiovascular issues. But obviously it's heightened a little bit more for those who are unvaccinated. But anyone who has it has immediately, mathematically, a heightened risk of heart disease.
I will also argue that he spent a lot of time in close quarters with vaccinated commentators shedding all over him. They had no respect for it, getting jabbed left, right, and center, just flaking all over him. And I think that could have contributed. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
He was vaccinated too, of course.
Well, yes, but the shedding makes it worse.
They're all shedding. They're all sitting in the commentary boxes shedding and shedding and shedding, yeah.
It's the worst. I'm glad you got the joke. Now let's move on. So, basically, in saying goodbye to someone who left the world a worse place than he found it, fellow con artist and woo medicine pusher Sayed G said, with a completely straight face here, this quote.
Yeah, he helped make this world a safer, better place for us all through his good works, including ripping off the dying.
Fuck you. Now, you want to do the next one, or do you want me to do it?
And then came up with this fucking word salad.
Ugh.
For the record, Rashid reached out to me on February 18th, a long way away, and explained that only a few weeks before he was in the ICU for 6 days with a diagnosis of both stroke and myocarditis. Oh, there you go, Joel. Mm-hmm. With symptoms and biomarkers consistent with adverse effects from the mRNA jabs, which he did not have.
Ooh, he says.
He didn't have them, but it's consistent. As you will see in the video, he believes that he was experiencing the result of shedding, aka self-amplifying properties from the transgenic mRNA jabs. Didn't have the vaccine, died of vaccine injury.
Yeah. So it's just nonsense. Just complete fucking nonsense.
Absolute crap. Yeah, good fucking riddance to you, champion.
Yep, 100%. No,
good
you will not be missed.
Riddance to you. And also falling neatly into that category is Rolf Harris.